Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to share with you my top 5 favorite variegated plants that I have in my collection. So we're gonna start off with this little pretty lady. So this is a watermelon peperomia, and the one that you find in the store typically does not have variegation, but this one does. Let me give you a closer look. So as you can see, there's just beautiful variegation on the leaves, and it still does have the watermelon pattern coming through. And if you can believe it or not, when I bought this plant, I actually split it up into 3 other pots. So it was really large, and I just figured I would make more than one pot out of it. I keep this one honestly on my counter. It's receiving no direct light. I don't know how long it's gonna survive sitting with no light, so I'm probably gonna move this to like an eastern window. And I water it whenever the soil has completely dried. But if you guys want to see a care video on watermelon peperomia, just let me know in the comments down below. I have been considering making one for a while, so if you need some tips or care instructions for your watermelon peperomia, I'm sure I can help you out because I have had mine for a few months, I think. And I also have the non-variegated version. And I just thought it looked so cute in this light pink pot because it's like a watermelon theme. But I think it's just so beautiful. And when I first saw the variegated watermelon peperomia was on Instagram, and I thought that there was something wrong with the leaves. I thought maybe like it had been overwatered or like it had a disease or something, but it truly is variegated. Like, look at this leaf. It has the white, and even the back side is kind of like variegated as well. And it's just beautiful. I love it so much. So I definitely recommend this. If you find it at the store, you should definitely pick it up if you are interested in getting one. My next favorite is probably very obvious. It's my Variegated Monstera. So I was lucky enough to buy this last fall from Logee's, and when I bought it, I honestly had never heard of Logee's before, and I was like, well, I hope this is a good site. I hope I can trust ordering from them, because it was like kind of pricey. The price has actually increased even more because this plant is so highly in demand, and it takes a long time for them to propagate this plant, so it's still back ordered, unfortunately. But this plant is so easy to care for. I just keep it in my eastern window. I water it when the soil has completely dried out, and that's pretty much it. And if you want some care instructions for this, I'll link it in the top right corner and also in the description box if you have this plant as well and you just want some care tips. But I highly recommend it if you do find it in your nurseries. And the cool thing about Monsteras is they have these aerial roots. So you can see it right there. And if you make a cut right below that root and you put this whole part with the root in water, you can propagate this plant. And I do have a propagation video, and I'll link that in the description as well. And I've had a lot of success propagating my solid version of a Monstera. But this guy is so stunning. He has grown so much. These top 3 leaves are all new growth. He didn't grow for like 7 months when I first got him, but thankfully in the spring and summer he has grown a lot. So I'm really happy about how healthy he looks, and he is just so easy to care for. Next up, we have my Hindu rope. This is a very tiny compared to the other guys, but he has this beautiful creamy white variegation on the leaves, and I just love how curly the foliage is. By the way, this pot is by Unearthed Wonder. I get a lot of questions about my pottery, and she's like my favorite potter from California. But this plant likes to be dried out completely. So for Hoyas, you don't want to overwater them. So I will wait till the soil is bone dry. I'll stick my finger about like 1 to 2 inches into the soil until it is completely dry. And then once it is, I will thoroughly water it until water runs out of the drainage hole. But this plant is beautiful. I also got it from Logee's. But just a disclaimer, so Hoyas can sometimes be prone to mealybug, and when it comes to Hindu rope plants, if you do happen to get mealybugs on your Hindu rope, it's awful because they will sneak into every crevice and they just wreak havoc, and they will basically suck the juice out of your plant. So just pray to the heavens that your plant will not get mealybug if you have a Hindu rope, because I think it's really hard to save it for mealybug because they literally will crawl into like every single crevice and nook and cranny, and you will not be able to get rid of them most likely. So try to keep this away from any plants that are infested with anything. So next I have my variegated orchid. Let me give you a closer look at the leaves. So they're just so unique, and they're kind of like yellowish color, and they have like the dark green as well. And there's actually a baby leaf growing right in the middle. I got this from Logi's as well. That's my favorite store ever. If you live in the Connecticut area, you need to go to Logi's because they have beautiful greenhouses. This orchid gets a purple flower when it goes into bloom, and it's beautiful. I just love how tiny this is. As you can see, I like to use this plastic pot so I can see the roots. When the roots are like a gray color, you know that it's dehydrated and you want to water it thoroughly. And then when your plant is hydrated, the roots will turn a dark green color, so you will know that it's happy and has been watered. And I have been experimenting with sphagnum moss, and I really do like keeping my orchids in New Zealand sphagnum moss. I do have a video on that as well, and I'll link it in the description if you're interested in learning about potting up your orchid in New Zealand sphagnum moss. It is great if you're not able to water constantly. Like if you keep your orchid in bark, it does require more water. So the sphagnum moss is going to allow the roots to stay moist for longer. But anyway, my orchid video goes into way more detail, so just watch that video if you're interested in learning more about this. Last but not least, this is my Hoya Obovata Variegata. And his leaves are really cute, and they have these splashes of variegation. You can see there's 2 little baby leaves. I'm literally gonna drop this. I got 2 baby leaves right there, and look at that shot. Look at the variegation. It's so pretty. So I keep this little babe in my western window, and he does great. I got him from Gardino Nursery. If you're in the market for Hoyas, Gardino Nursery is my favorite place. But I was never able to find this type of Hoya where I live, so luckily I found it from their nursery. And I let his soil dry out completely before I water it again. And he's really easy to care for, and I cannot wait till he flowers. I'll put a picture of the flower up on the screen. I love Hoya flowers. They're so beautiful, and they look like little pieces of candy or something, or wax. And it's a gorgeous plant. So now that we've gone over my 5 favorite variegated plants, I also wanted to give you some tips on choosing variegated plants and like what I've learned. So the first thing that you want to keep in mind is when you're buying a variegated plant, you want to make sure that a majority of the leaves have some type of variegation, because if you're buying a plant that has a lot of solid leaves, that's not a good sign. The solid leaves could eventually take over and it could revert back to solid. So it is good to start off with a lot of variegation so you are getting the type of plant that you want. If you do notice that your plant starts to revert back to green, that could mean a few things. Your plant might not be getting enough light, so you want to make sure that it's maybe in an eastern or western window so that it will continue to grow variegated leaves. Also, if you notice that a whole stem or branch is growing in solid green, you want to snip off that branch because the green leaves will start to take over. So just snip off any completely solid branches, and that will allow the variegated branches to continue to grow and hopefully push out more variegated leaves. And then the last thing to keep in mind is if your plant does grow like a solid white leaf, it is a very pretty thing that can happen. Aesthetically, it looks nice. The plant will work really hard to keep that leaf alive, and the white leaves can sometimes kind of wither away and die, which is normal. That happens to my plants quite often. And the white leaves might last for a few weeks or a few months, and eventually they might die off, which is completely fine. But if you're noticing that your plant is becoming like completely white, like with a ton of white leaves, it actually is better to chop away the white leaves, because it could eventually like kill your plant, because those white leaves do not have chlorophyll, so it's not going to be, the leaves won't be helping your plant grow. So that is a good thing to keep in mind, that maybe eventually if it's growing too many white leaves, to just snip some of them away so that your plant will be able to have more variegated leaves that can help with growth and keeping your plant healthy. All right, so those are all the tips I have for you for variegated plants. If you have any questions, just leave them down below. Also, for more daily updates, you can follow me on my Instagram. It's Juju Succulents. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.